Self-service requests in DGE can take two flavors. We have the file system access request and the SharePoint access request. Those two are collectively known as requesting access to resources that already exist. These are resources that are already out there in a file share somewhere, and they are published to the IT shop by a data governance administrator so that other people can request access to those. Now we have here this other form of request, and this is a new file system share request. This provides the capability to allow end users, anybody with access to the IT shop and One Identity Manager, to request that a new share get created. Not just requesting access to resources that are already out there. This request allows an end user to say, I'm interested in creating a new share somewhere. I don't care where. I just need a place where I can put resources and then I can share it with other people. So we have this capability right here in the IT shop that allows anybody to do. So here you can see I'm logged in as Lenny Wardwell, and I'm logged into the IT shop. And right here I have the capability to request a new resource gets created. So in order to configure self-service for new file system share in data governance, there's quite a lot of configuration. There's some very simple configuration that must be done, but then the workflow and the configuration around what happens for a new file system share request, it can get quite complex, but we provide a lot of customizability because we understand that out of the box, whatever we provide will need to be customized, right? So we've allowed that customizability in many areas of this whole feature. So I'm going to talk about a few of those customizations, and I'll talk about the customizations that absolutely are required. So I'm going to switch over to the object browser, number one, and I already have some of these things already pre-configured, but these are the main ones that you really need. So QAM node here in the object browser, these are the lists of your managed hosts. For new share requests, it's important to select one or more of your managed hosts that will be available for self-service requests in this manner. So these are the machines that are capable of hosting new shares. So here's my MMDIM 702 machine, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to show you that I already set this property. It's very important. The property is this one right here. Is managed resource host. So by default, when you add a managed host, it goes into the QAM node table. These are usually set to false by default. So what I've done is I've set this specific machine to be true. So this managed host, this file server, is available to host new shares. The second thing you need to do is create a managed share root path, one or more per managed host. So here, what I've done is for this specific QAM node, I've set a root path here to be my data shares directory, right? This is where I put all of my shares. So you can see down here, here's my folder structure for shares, right? So these are all shared folders. This is where I like to put them. So that's where I'm going to say all of my new folders that will be shared, I'm going to put in this directory, okay? And then the final thing that needs to be configured in the object browser is the QAM managed resource type domain. So for every domain, you're going to need to set some default options. And there's 5 of them. So the first one here is DGE managed groups. You can see that. That's my container. That's my Active Directory container for this domain where I'm going to create groups. So when we create this new file system share, we're going to be creating a folder. We're going to be sharing it. We're going to be creating groups, and those groups are where we're going to put people who are requesting access, right? That's how we want people to get access to those resources. So we want a specific container where these new groups are going to be created. So that's what that is. You have to select an ADS container in a specific domain where those groups are going to be created. File operations server tag. This allows you to select a specific tag for a job service where this is the job service that's tagged like this, And that's the job service that's actually going to perform the operations of creating the share, creating the folder, etc. By default, if you don't select anything here, it's going to be the job service with the data governance connector flag. Full control group is an ADS group in the domain that is going to be nested within the full control group that we create by default for the share, right? So what you do is you select a group that no matter what other security gets created, this group is going to be nested in the full control group. And then QAM managed resource type, this is set to be simple share. Basically, this is a template that describes the security that's going to be created, the nesting of the security, the types of the groups that are created, the naming of the groups, etc. So I've kind of skipped over that very fast. Obviously, there's a lot in that sentence or two. Basically, we allow the creation of templates that will model what happens when a new resource gets created. So the nesting of the groups, the types of the groups, and the naming of the groups. Very, very important, because we understand that every customer is different, everybody names groups differently, everybody uses security differently. So this is the simple share, which we provide out of the box, that has our idea of security, security nesting, group, and group naming. So those are the three QAM managed tables that need some customization in order to get this whole thing rolling, right? So I've already have it preset, so everything's good to go. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go back to Lenny. So here's Lenny Wardwell. And Lenny is gonna request access to create a new file system share. That's what he wants, right? And enter the name for this new file share. It's, what is the purpose for this new file share? Again, this can be anything. I have an idea. And then there's a checkbox here. Allow others in your organization to be able to request access to this resource. Basically, do you want to publish this resource to the IT shop? That's what that's indicating there. So I have it selected by default. I'm going to go OK. Check and submit shopping cart. So here's my request. So I don't say anything about machines because as an end user, I have no idea about machines. I just know that I want a place to collaborate. I want a share created somewhere. That's all I care about. So I'm going to submit the request. Perfect. That's it. As an end user, there's the end. That's my responsibility, is to just submit the request. So I'm going to log out. The next step in the process is Lenny's manager. So I'm going to log in as Lenny's manager. So here I am logged in as Lenny's manager, who is Robert Vidmar. And I can see that Robert has a pending request. So I'm going to go to pending requests. And here I can see that Lenny Wardwell has requested a new file system share called Lenny's Secret Project. The reason is I have an idea, I need a place to collaborate, and as Lenny's manager, I agree. I'm going to approve this decision. Now you notice that Robert Vidmar, Lenny's boss, never specifies anything about machines or security or anything. That's not his business. It's his business is to just approve whether or not Lenny can have this share that he's requested. So as his manager, I'm just going to approve and go next. Reason, sure. And then save approvals. Your decision has been saved. No problem. So step number 2, pretty simple. Now I'm going to log on. And here's where the fun begins. I'm going to log in as a data governance administrator. So I am a data governance administrator. I'm going to log in. And as a data governance administrator, I see I have a pending request as well. You are entitled to approve or deny the following request. Lenny's Secret Project, new file system share. Lenny Wardwell is the person who created it. So now what I'm going to do is I have this, I can't approve it yet, right? Because I need to do things. And here's the things I need to do. Select server and groups, and it's going to load this screen. So here's the options as a data governance administrator that I'm responsible for configuring, changing, etc. A lot of this is pre-configured, and a lot of the heavy lifting under the covers for showing you the security that's going to be created, the server that's going to be selected, etc., etc. All of that is pre-configured as part of the simple share, right? So when I originally was showing you in the object browser some configuration, but there's a template already predefined, right? And a lot of this information is coming from there. So here's the share name. I'm fine, but I can change it if I want. So if I'm not happy with what he's calling his share, I can change it. Published to IT shop was pre-selected. I'm not going to touch that, but if I didn't want this to be published, I would just uncheck. File share host. This is an interesting one. So we have these concept of server selection scripts, and we have a server selection script out of the box, which basically just returns a random managed host that has the property set, which is available for managed shares, right? And in this case, because I only have one, it's going to select that one. I can also manually specify a server as well. You can also create multiple scripts. You can say, I want this script to do this, I want this script to do this. So you can add multiple server selection scripts. For now, we're just going to pick the default, which is just returning the one machine. And then every server, every managed host that's available to host these shares can have one or more paths. So you have to pick the root path, right? So because I only have one, I'm going to pick that. No problem. Now I can go OK if I want, but we have another tab up here, which is permissions. Permissions is going to show you, based on the template, which is simple share, the nesting of the groups that we're going to be creating within that Active Directory container, which we already pre-configured. It's going to tell you whether or not this group is going to be the one that's a self-service group. So here you can see the global read group and the global write group are marked as is self-service group. That means when people request access to this share in the future in the IT shop, these are the groups that are going to be returned. So if I request read access, it will be this group that gets returned. If I request only write access, then this is the one that's going to be returned, regardless of the other security or groups that are on that resource. And then it shows you the permissions that are going to be ACLed directly on the share. So in this case, this group will be full control, this group will be read, and this group will be read write. Now, this is, again, the default security as part of the template. Obviously, everybody has different ideas for how they want nesting, where they want the security to go, etc. And this is completely customizable out of the box. So, don't worry if this doesn't match exactly what the customer wants. This is completely customizable. Patterns. Here you can see group names, right? And you see these strange cryptic strings here. And what these are is these are patterns for group names, and we can define new patterns. Over here you can see the resolved group name based on the pattern, right? So let's just click this one. Let's go edit, and this will give you an idea of what I mean. So the group name pattern includes things like cost center, random, etc. And you can define macros that will replace ultimately the name of the group with whatever the macro says. So in this particular case, I have cost center, right? These are just simple out-of-the-box samples for name pattern resolvers that will ultimately replace the name of the group with whatever you have. So again, nothing we need to change here, but if you want to customize this, you can add new macros that return specific information and then will eventually resolve to an actual group name here. So I'm just going to go cancel here. I'm happy with everything I see. I'm happy with the information on the first tab here, the root path, the server. I'm happy with the share name. The permissions are great. I'm okay. And then I'm going to go okay. Good. Now I can approve because I've looked through those options. Everything's good. I've selected my share path and I'm going to go next. Save approvals. Good. So the request went through, the requester's manager approved, and the data governance administrator said yes. Based on all the information that came back to me, I had to customize a little bit. I had to pick the share path, but other than that, I'm good to go. So now comes the actual creation of the resource. So here we are watching job queue info. You can see that now I have this QAM create DGE managed resource process that is kicked in. It's going to be nesting the groups. It's going to be creating the folder, sharing it, adding the groups to the resource, etc., right? It's doing things in exactly the order that you would expect them to do. Now, this whole workflow is actually defined right here in process orchestration under person once org. We have this QAM create DGE managed resource, and here's the out of the box workflow. Again, we understand that everybody is going to want to customize this. For example, this out of the box one only works for Windows file servers. It doesn't allow you to create, for example, a share on NetApp Filer or create a SharePoint document library or something that we're not even considering. This is really just an example of what could be in a new file system share request, right? So we want to show you how to create the groups, how to nest them, and then it will use the security model as defined in the template. Again, all of this can be customized. If you don't like the way this goes, then you can create a copy of this, modify the copy, and then use that as your process that's going to kick in when a new file share is requested. So back to the job queue info, we can check. And this can take some time, so we're not going to sit here and watch the whole thing. So basically, at the end of this, the end user will have a share created. A folder will be created on that server. It will be shared. The requester will get an email when it's all done that, hey, you now have a share created. Here's the path. Feel free to share this path. And because it'll automatically be governed, all resources that are created through here are automatically governed and owned. So there'll be owners for these resources. And then you can automatically have policies assigned to them, and you can do attestations, etc. So this is the new file system share request.